Imagine you are in Africa, 70,000 years ago. You are not at the center of the world. You are on its periphery. The world around you does not belong to you. It is inhabited by at least 4 other human species. There are the mighty Neanderthals in Europe and Western Asia, true athletes of the Ice Age, capable of surviving where we would freeze in a matter of hours. There are the mysterious Denisovans, masters of the Asian mountain plateaus, and the short but resilient hobbits of Flores Island. Each of them is stronger than you, each has a larger brain volume, and each is tuned to their unique landscape. And you? You are Homo sapiens. You look like a rather weak, unprotected species. You have no fur, your canines are too short, and your bones are fragile. You live in constant fear of predators that are much faster than you. But look into the future, a few tens of thousands of years ahead. Nothing will remain of the other species, except for a few bone fragments in the darkness of caves. And you? You will become a ubiquitous force that will change the face of the entire planet, from scorching sands to Arctic tundras. Why did we win this evolutionary game? Was it an accident? A fluke of nature? Or did we bring something into this world that changed the very concept of life? Welcome to the channel. Today we will dive into a history that lies deeper than any chronicles of civilizations. We will attempt to unravel the mystery of our triumph. We will explore how the cognitive revolution became the turning point that separated us from the rest of the animal world. We will talk about how language turned into our most powerful weapon, and why the ability to believe in imaginary things, in spirits, gods, national borders, or concepts of justice, made us the rulers of the earth. This is not just a story about the past. It is a story about how we became who we are today. To understand our dominance, we must realize one thing. For most of its history, Homo sapiens was just one of many. We were not the crown of evolution. We were just one of several hominid variants. Our Neanderthal relatives were masters of survival. They hunted mammoths, used complex tools, possessed their own culture and art, and, as recent studies show, even performed complex burial rituals. However, herein lies the tragic flaw of specialization. Neanderthals were biologically perfect, but only for their specific niche. They were like a perfect clockwork mechanism that breaks if the ambient temperature changes. When the climate shifted, when mammoths migrated or went extinct, the Neanderthals found themselves at a dead end. They did not know how to change their strategy quickly. We, in contrast, were biological dilettantes. We were not the best hunters, nor the most resilient to the cold, but we possessed an internal potential for radical change. We could adapt to new conditions not in thousands of years through body evolution, but in a matter of days through shifts in behavioral strategy. We were not tuned to a specific environment. We tuned the environment to ourselves. This unspecialized nature became our greatest weapon. We did not just live in the world, we began to reshape it. What exactly happened about 70,000 years ago? Scientists call this period the cognitive revolution. It was not a gradual evolutionary change spanning millions of years. It was an explosion, a series of random but critical genetic mutations that altered the internal architecture of our brain. It is important to understand, anatomically, we did not become stronger, faster, or larger. Our muscles did not become tougher than those of Neanderthals, nor did our teeth become sharper. Yet, our mind received new software. We began to use language not just as a system of signals, but as a tool for creating reality. Animals use language to transmit concrete data. Food here. Run, predator. I am ready to mate. Our ancestors did the same before the cognitive revolution. But after it, a unique ability emerged to speak about things that do not exist in the physical world. Imagine a group of people around a fire. Before the revolution, they could only discuss what they could see. Tomorrow we will go to that hill. This meat is tasty. After the revolution, they could say, This hill belongs to the spirit of our ancestor. It protects us as long as we follow the rules. Try explaining that to a monkey or even a Neanderthal. They would not understand what you mean because, for them, the spirit of an ancestor is nothing. For Homo sapiens, it became a reality that governed the entire life of the tribe. This ability for abstract thinking is not just a fantasy, it is a fundamental engineering advantage. We learn to create intersubjective realities: money, states, laws, religions, human rights. None of these exist in nature. If you find a tiger in the forest, it exists objectively. If you find a dollar or a legal document in the forest, it is just paper. But because we all believe in the value of that paper, it becomes a force that changes the world. Neanderthals were locked in the world of objective reality. They reacted only to what they could hear, see, or touch. Homo sapiens, however, gained access to a collective mind. We began to pass on knowledge not through genes, but through stories, myths, legends, and traditions. Each new generation did not have to reinvent the wheel. It received a ready-made knowledge package on how to survive, how to hunt, and most importantly, how to cooperate. This led to the emergence of what we can call cultural evolution. It works thousands of times faster than biological evolution. If a biological species must wait thousands of years to grow fur to survive the cold, Homo sapiens simply invented a needle and sewed clothing from the fur of a hunted animal. We passed this knowledge on, and the next generation did not waste resources on inventing the needle, but sought ways to make it even better. We ceased to be just a part of the ecological system. We became the creators of our own systems. The cognitive revolution gave us an interface for communication that allowed us not only to unite, but to coordinate the actions of huge groups of people. We learned to create shared goals that held us together, even when the tribe contained many strangers. And this ability to trust, based on made-up stories, became the secret ingredient that eventually allowed us to outcompete all our rivals. Now that we understand what happened in our brain, thanks to the cognitive revolution, let us look at how this was realized in practice. How did we manage to turn from a band of gatherers into a dominant force? The key lies in a concept known as Dunbar's number. In the world of mammals, social structure is rigidly limited by brain size. Since we are social creatures, we must maintain stable relationships with members of our pack. We need to know who trusts whom, who is stronger, who is craftier. In chimpanzees, this limit is about 50 individuals. In Neanderthals, thanks to their large brains, this figure was likely higher, but still limited. They could effectively interact only with those they knew personally, face to face. If the group grew, it inevitably split. The social system simply could not handle that volume of information. But Homo sapiens found a hack for this biological system. Thanks to language that allowed for gossiping, we were able to expand our circle of knowledge about other people. Gossip is not just entertainment, it is a mechanism of control. If I know that you are a reliable hunter and someone else is a slacker, I do not need to hunt with you personally to know if I should trust you with a share of the spoils. But even this was not enough for large scales. Here, the ability to believe in imaginary things comes into play. When a group exceeds Dunbar's number, approximately 150 people, personal connections stop working. To hold thousands of people together, we needed a social glue, a myth that unites strangers. When hundreds of people believe in the same totem spirit, or the sanctity of the same law, they start acting as a single unit. They do not need to know each other personally to trust one another. It is enough that you wear the same symbol or perform the same ritual. This allowed us to create superstructures, tribal alliances, ritual communities, and eventually, armies. A Neanderthal, meeting another group, saw only strangers, competitors for food. Homo sapiens, meeting strangers, could ask, "Which god do you worship?" or "What tribe are you from?" If the answers matched, they could unite for a hunt or a war. This flexibility in creating artificial us and them gave us an incredible military advantage. We could gather armies that outnumbered any Neanderthal group dozens of times over. This was the end of the era of individual heroism. The era of collective systems had arrived. Neanderthals were better one-on-one fighters, but they lost the war at the system level because they could not effectively scale their trust. They remained captives of their biology, while we moved beyond it, building a society held together by faith in abstract ideas. We did not just defeat them in open combat. We displaced them, occupying territories they considered their own, and creating a denser network of interaction where resources were sufficient only for our system. Neanderthals simply could not withstand the pace of change set by our species. The dominance of Homo sapiens was not just a matter of social agreements. It was cemented by our capacity for a continuous innovation process. Why? Because our myths and social structures demanded new solutions for new challenges. When we spread across the planet, we encountered different environments. In the Arctic, a Neanderthal axe was useless. We needed needles, harpoons, and multi-layered fur clothing. In hot savannas, we needed lighter throwing spears. This need for adaptation stimulated technical creativity. The most important moment was the transition to the accumulation of technology. When you have language and social memory, you can transmit not just experience, how to kill a deer, but also technical blueprints, how to make a better spear. This created a snowball effect. The invention of one generation became the foundation for the next. Metallurgy changed the very nature of war and labor. Bronze weapons required complex trade networks. You needed copper from one place and tin from another. This forced us to build the first international trade routes, and trade routes are not just the exchange of metals. They are the exchange of ideas, religions, writing, and languages. Technology became the locomotive that pulled globalization along. We turned the planet into our workshop. We ceased to be a species and started to be a civilization. We broke the biological chain. We created non-genetic memory. First, it was oral traditions and myths, then cave paintings, and later, a true revolution: writing. Writing allowed us to store huge volumes of data that could not fit in the memory of an individual person. The state became an information network, where every citizen was a node. Each new generation started not from scratch, but from the level reached by its predecessors. This led to the phenomenon of the collective mind. However, our success has a paradox. We became unstoppable, but also extremely vulnerable. Neanderthals were vulnerable to climate change because they were specialists. We became vulnerable to the consequences of our own activities. Our global networks of trade and information are our greatest achievement, but they also create conditions where a local failure, an epidemic, a financial crisis, or a technological collapse can become a global catastrophe. We have entered the Anthropocene, an era where human activity is the defining factor for the biosphere. We no longer adapt to nature. We demand that nature adapt to us. But biology has limits that cannot be bypassed by even the most sophisticated myths or technologies. The gap between our biological nature and our technological capabilities is the main challenge of the 21st century. We are the first species to realize its own evolution, and thus the first species that can manage it. Whether we find a path to sustainable existence or become another example of the progress trap is an open question. The answer will be written not by the past, but by the future.